Hi, everybody. Welcome back. We have a very special guest this week on Unmasking, and she is one of my favorite yoga teachers at Ignite Yoga Studio in Frisco, Texas. And Jeannie, I don't think I've ever asked you how to pronounce your last name. Do you say Gallo?
Yeah, it's Gallo. Mhm.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Gallo, like the wine. All right.
Yeah.
So before we get started, I'm just going to introduce Jeannie and I'll read her bio. She has been in the movement and wellness space for over 10 years now. She's a certified personal trainer, a 200-hour certified yoga teacher, and has a lot of other credentials with movement and breath. She currently teaches yoga, HIIT, strength, and mobility, as well as leading movement workshops throughout the Dallas Metroplex area. She is a lover of community and passionate in helping others find joy through movement, and also honors the importance of regulating the nervous system. She's been lucky enough to live her passion by teaching and educating hundreds of students the power of mindful movement and the importance of doing so with purpose and intention. And I think if you've ever been to one of Jeannie's classes, it is. I describe it as kind of like it's really zen, but then she always throws in like some sort of like fun dance music. And I'm always like wanting to dance whenever I'm there. So I think if you ask anybody, she's so inspiring. And it's just always a great time. It's impossible to go take her class without leaving smiling and probably a little bit sore as well. So thank you, Jeannie, so much for being on the pod.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. Oh, I'm so
Yes.
excited to be here. And
Oh, good.
yeah.
Oh, wonderful. I just thought she would be a great addition to our Burnout series because in our yoga classes, Jeannie, I always feel like you have some sort of nugget of information about regulation and movement and just knowing yourself and tapping into your personal power. And so we're just going to get into it today. And I thought we would start by just having you tell us a little bit about your story. So, as much or as little as you want to share, where are you from? How did you get to Frisco, Texas?
Sure. So I am originally from South Florida. I was born in South Florida, in Fort Lauderdale. Lived in Miami, and pretty much spent most of my life in South Florida.
Hmm.
I have two kids. I went to college in New York City. Fast forward a little bit, but I
Oh,
went to
wow.
college in New York City. Yeah, and then I was a young mom. And
Hmm.
so part of my story, I think, is really that being in college, I got pregnant, I had a baby,
Hmm.
and then my husband now, my baby daddy is my husband. But we have two kids, and I think that that's honestly part of where a lot of my journey really has started
Hmm.
because I was a professional dancer, and movement has always been a part of my life, but I really fast had to grow up. It was something that transitioned quickly, and so being in school for fashion school and then having to leave New York and go back home, and go, okay, we're having a baby, life is
Yeah.
about to shift and change. And going to burnout, I don't really remember having a thought process. I was having a baby, and it was like, all right, here we go, one foot in
Yeah.
front of the other, and we just kind of trucked along until I had my second son. And
Hmm.
then same thing. Life was great though. We figured it out, and I was able to go to school and have my babies and get married, and life honestly from that point on, I feel like just like most people who have babies, you just start going and
Yes.
things start building and you just start
Hmm.
doing. But I to fast forward, I am a fashion show producer. So after that, I did fashion show production for about 15 years, and I still do.
Cool.
I produce some of the largest shows in Swim Week. So it's the largest swim production in the world, really. It's a global event that happens in Miami. And so I've been lucky enough to do that while being in Dallas. Been in
Cool.
Dallas for about 6 years, going on 7 years.
Oh,
Time
wow.
flies. I know. And we moved here for my husband's job.
Hmm.
So I think at the time, I always say we moved here for his job, but really, I think we moved here for me
Yeah.
because I think in that point, I had my boys and I was working and I was teaching classes part-time, and there was this accumulation of burnout without
Mm.
knowing, without realizing. So when my husband said, I have this opportunity to go to Dallas, I felt like what a perfect opportunity to run
Yeah.
away from all of this. Honestly,
Mhm.
is what the sensation was that I can feel now. That was the feeling in my body. And so when he got the job, I actually resisted. I was like, wait, I don't
Yeah.
want to go. I'm not going. You're going by yourself. I'm not going. Because I think that although I was burnt out and I wanted to run away, there was also the reality. And I didn't like that reality either.
Mhm.
Because coming to Dallas meant I didn't know anybody. I had zero friends. I literally knew not a soul.
Yeah.
My kids were starting a new school, high school. They were angry. So there was a lot of other emotions that came along with that.
Mhm.
But now looking back at these last 7 years, almost 7 years, it has been the most transformational years of my life. They have been the
Yeah.
most transformational. And I think it's because I had a moment I didn't have friends when I moved here. I had my
Mhm.
kids and my husband, but I had to sit down and go, oh, huh, okay.
Yeah.
So who do you want to be and how are you going to show up in this world now?
Mhm.
And and I think that I've loved the years that have gone by, a lot of changes, a lot of shifts, but I would say I'm really grateful for where I am right now. Really
Yeah.
grateful.
What a
Mhm.
story. I told you before we started recording, I didn't really know much of your story. I just knew that like here you appeared on the scene and at Ignite but I had no idea that you originally went to New York to do fashion and
Mhm.
but I always wondered, like I would see you post about like Miami Fashion Week
Yeah.
and I was like, what is okay,
Mhm.
I need to understand more about like how this is
Yeah.
all interconnected. So, what
Mhm.
a cool story. And you met your husband at college in New York or
So we met through friends. Yeah, we met through
okay.
friends.
Yeah.
Actually, he was like spring breaking in Florida and
Uh-huh.
I was home. We had similar friend. We had mutual friends.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I mean, we've been together for over I have a 22 and 18-year-old also. I didn't say that, but
Wow.
yeah,
Yeah.
my boys are now really big. My oldest
Mhm.
graduated from Penn State and my
Oh,
youngest is a freshman at NC State. So I think the big thing is that we are empty nesters, which is wild.
yes.
But we're full empty nesters.
Yes, I can almost relate. I mean, I've got like a year and a half to
Yeah.
go, but I
Yeah.
remember you and I have had a couple of conversations at the
Mhm.
yoga studio about this phase of life that we're entering. I really relate to, I mean, we were both young moms and
Mhm.
I can identify with what you say about not really noticing burnout because when you're in it, you're just in it, right? Like you don't really have time to stop and process what all is happening in your life, especially when your kids are little and you're still growing and maturing. We don't even know what that is until we get to our 30s, late
Yeah.
30s,
I
40s, and then we
know.
kind of hit a wall. Yeah,
Yeah, and that's
sure.
honestly what happened. I moved here and I don't know, maybe I don't remember. I was like 36, 37,
Hmm.
and, we moved here and I that's really when I realized I'm burnt out. I think
Yeah.
I got kind of mean. I was like, "I don't wanna cook anymore. I don't wanna
Hmm.
clean anymore. Like, I'm
Right.
done.
Yes.
I don't want any of this anymore." But now hindsight, I go, I was just so burnt out for so many years of taking care of everybody
Yeah.
and not taking care of myself.
Yes.
I would go to the gym and I would exercise, but there was never really they're like small little pockets, right, of
Hmm.
that because I've always been very in tune. But
Sure.
when you have kids and you're working and you got sports and you're going here and you're going there and you're cooking and this, you forget. And
Hmm.
so coming here, my oldest was in high school, my youngest was in middle school,
Yeah.
and I realized I had so much downtime. I had a
Hmm.
lot of silent time.
Yeah.
And it was actually an opportunity that I like spending this time by myself. I kind of like myself. I'm kind of cool. Like I
Yeah.
like to,
Yeah.
it wasn't like those things where I'm like I don't like to be by myself. It
Hmm.
was an opportunity for me to go and explore new gyms. I really love like
Sure.
juice bars and eating healthy. So I was like, oh, I'll go to Dallas and I'll check this out. I'll check
Yeah.
out this yoga studio and that cycle studio. And
Sure.
honestly, that's what eventually led to me teaching full time here,
Okay,
with
I was gonna ask
exploring.
about that.
Mhm.
Yeah, like,
Yeah.
because if you originally started out in the fashion industry and then came back to Florida when you had your son, what led you to that transition into the fitness industry or wellness industry?
Sure. Well, it's something that has really always been a part of my life. Like I mentioned in the beginning, I was a professional dancer, so I used to
Mhm.
it was a difference. So I was always in the fitness industry. There's a
Yeah.
difference because the fitness industry and the dance world is very aesthetic,
Mhm.
right? So it's what do you look like on the outside? You're going on an audition. So I'm a number, I look a certain way, I should move a certain way, I need to be a certain way. Um, but as a young girl, my mom taught. So my mom was a like a step aerobics instructor.
Oh,
And she was totally like the low impact, like
yeah. Mhm.
the Jane Fonda-ish
Yep.
era, maybe. And so it was something that I saw. It was something that came natural. So actually when I graduated high school when I was 18, I got my first certification. It's called AFA group certification. So
Okay.
I got certified to do that, and it was to teach like step classes and just dance aerobics. And so I actually did that at 18 and did a
Wow.
little bit of that,
Mhm.
but I kept continuing with dance, with just dance. But um when I did my fashion show production, I still always taught on the side. It was always a little like side thing. It's my movement has just been a part of my life. It feels really
Mhm.
good.
Yeah.
But here's a transition. So I always coached athletes. I always
Oh,
was like,
okay.
that like coaching athletes, And then somebody told me one day in a conversation, those people already have it. You should coach people that really don't love to move their bodies,
Mhm.
because maybe you'll find, there's a little bit more joy, there's less of the tenacity and more
Yeah.
of like, what do you love to do to move your body?
Mhm.
And so that's kind of when I moved here, that's where the transition shifted from fitness to wellness,
Okay.
for sure.
Yeah.
So like getting my yoga certification, starting to
Mhm.
focus more on breath, starting to focus more on how the feeling after instead of the calorie
Sure.
count. Granted, I get it. Everybody has a reason and a why.
Mhm.
But I think at the end of the day, when we realize that moving our bodies is way bigger than a calorie count, than
Mhm.
looking skinny, it's part of, because for my journey, it's been part of my mental health.
Yeah.
It's been part of releasing endorphins. And gosh, I've been having a really bad day, but I go and I exercise and I'm like, "Huh, okay, I'm better. Here we
Yes.
go. I can attack the
Sure.
day now?"
Yeah, I
So
love
that's
that.
the wellness.
Yeah, I no, I was just thinking I love the shift there because it's you're going from less performative and more purposeful movement. I mean, both are great, right, to some
Sure,
extent.
sure.
But if we're talking about burnout and we're talking about managing anxiety and emotions and just all the things that as women and moms and just people deal with, I think we have to go a little bit deeper.
Yeah, and so when I moved here, I just started I felt bad for everybody, trying to take care of everybody. So probably the first year was like making sure, is my high school son okay? Because
Yeah,
he was really stressed, and he was
yeah.
really upset. Like, how could you do this to us?
Mhm.
How can you move us? And then my younger son he was great. He loved it.
Yeah.
I didn't have friends. I was figuring out my path. Who am I now? Like, what is
Mhm.
this journey now? Who am I going to be? And when we take it to the burnout phase, after about a year, yes, I was enjoying the alone time. And I haven't really shared this story with many people, but
Yeah.
I woke up one morning and I couldn't hear out of my right ear. And so it
Oh.
was kind of weird. It was just this vertigo, and I got up and I called my husband at work, and he was like, "What's going on?" I'm like, "You need to come home. I can't stand up. Something's weird."
Mm.
And so he came home and he was like, at first, like, "Are you being dramatic?" I'm like, "No, no, I can't drive.
Yeah.
I can't stand up." So I made my way to the bathroom. He came home. Long story, fast forward, that day he took me to the emergency room and they did a bunch of tests. And to this day, they don't know why, but I think the really big pivoting point in my life was this day, because I to this day, I don't have hearing in my right ear. I am fully deaf in my right ear, which is
Oh,
really
wow.
wild because I
Yeah,
teach in loud places and I've
sure.
grown up dancing. But I think the reason why it's the pivoting moment or the big shift of the burnout is because in that moment I realized this is all really fast. Like
Yeah.
we are here for a short time. And
Mhm.
so if I'm not enjoying the things that I'm doing, it took something for me is a really big deal to this moment still that I can't hear out of my ear. But if it took for
Yeah.
this, for me to get to the point to go, I am not happy doing this. I
Mhm.
am no longer doing this, then I'll
Yeah.
take it because it has
Sure.
been the biggest shift of my literally of my journey. My husband, everyone's like, you are just this, everything is great. And I'm like, it's not.
Yeah.
But I understand that in a flash, things can get taken away, you know?
Mhm.
And so I'm just living on this place of life can get pretty crappy, but it can, you know, I don't
Mhm.
hear out of my right ear. So
Yeah.
here we are, you know?
Yes. Thank you so much for being
Yeah.
vulnerable and sharing that part with us because I think what you're talking about is perspective. It's like such a huge perspective shift. And again, to go
Yeah.
back to our conversations at Ignite, it really makes you kind of look at your life and lay it all out and go, okay, like what matters, what doesn't matter? Am I happy? If I'm not
Sure.
happy, how can I
Mhm.
change this? Like what do I
Mhm.
want? And I see, Jeannie, like the other part that our listeners might not know about you is you're so inspiring. You go off on these like adventures and like what was the one that you went to Yosemite and like stayed in this tiny house and like I'm seeing you have all these
Yeah.
oh, I love dogs.
Yeah,
Sweet dog.
my doggy too.
Um
Stop.
oh, I love it. Yeah,
Yeah.
and just like seeing you like go off and just like explore and maybe you have an agenda, maybe you don't. Oftentimes the better trips, we don't have the plans, right? So, I was wondering if you could talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah. So I think that's one of the shifts, right? So that
Yeah.
happened and I started going, okay, I am going to teach yoga.
Mhm.
I want to teach full time. It's bringing me joy. I'm going to do more of that.
Yes.
And then I started teaching a lot. And
Yeah.
guess what?
Yep.
I started getting burnt out
Yes.
from teaching so much, even though there's so much joy. But the journeys and the adventures started because I realized every time I would leave and go on these adventures, I would realize how much joy it brought to my life. But not only that, I realized that I don't need a lot to be happy.
Yeah.
I really, and I love to use this term often because I think at the beginning of the podcast, I said I wanted to run away. But the
Mhm.
shift and the perspective is different. So now I realize I want to run towards the things that are making my soul happy, that are bringing me joy.
Yeah.
So when I feel the burnout, it's not, I need to run away and get away. It's no, no, no. You need to run towards the things that are bringing you joy. And these adventures light my soul. So being in nature, going to Yosemite,
Mhm.
going hiking, it's just you, it's me, my backpack, my food, nature. And there's this energy, there's this aliveness. But I think, again,
Yeah.
nature does that. So the
Yeah.
adventures are that. So people are always like, "Oh my god, you're leaving again?" I'm like, "Yeah, but I'm not running away. Like I love y'all. I
Yeah.
love being here. But I love me and running towards these things just makes me better for everybody, for at home,
Yes.
at the studio, for myself."
Yeah. Yeah. It's like you get to kind of rediscover maybe a part of yourself that gets lost in the day to day routines and caretaking and all the things that we're doing as moms and wives and people.
Yeah, as
Yeah.
humans.
Yeah.
Because now that my boys are at home, I still now that was the thing. So there's like so many little shifts and so many
Mhm.
burnouts. The
Yeah.
burnouts were first, being home, being a mom, doing, going, being moving here, new.
Mhm.
So trying to be this great mom and wife, burnout. And
Mhm.
then I'm in this beautiful place now where I'm doing and I'm choosing, I'm teaching a
Yeah.
lot because I'm choosing it. But I'm
Yes.
also when the moment I feel burnt out, I'm like, "Okay, let's pull back and let's start to do
Yes.
that and find the little joys. Go to another studio and be a student. Go to a retreat
Yes.
and be a student," you know?
Yes.
But that's what
Right.
these adventures mean. They really do.
Oh. I love that. It's so inspiring. It just has me always thinking about like, okay, where's my next thing? What am I going to do next? And what am I putting in my calendar? And
Yeah.
I think for our listeners that maybe are just new to this whole burnout concept, or maybe
Mhm.
they have felt it, but they have not really had the language for it.
Sure.
Could you talk about your experience of when you started to notice that, oh, maybe this is burnout instead of maybe I'm just an angry person? I think you mentioned like the anger that you've been.
Yeah.
I really relate to that too, because again, young mom, you're just taking care of people and things. And then all of a sudden you hit your mid 30s, early 40s, and you're like, ugh, or I mean,
Yeah.
at least for me, it's almost kind of
Yeah.
like for me, it was almost like a resentment feeling, like, I want that for myself. So I wonder if you could share how did you know? Were there, like, physical signs? Were there mental signs? What was coming up for you?
I think throughout in general, so even though being the young mom, taking one foot in front of the other, I think probably at about 28, I got a really insane panic attack and I didn't really
Yeah.
know what it was. I remember just being in a space and like, I can't breathe. With,
Yeah.
like there was just this sensation of anxiety. And I
Mhm.
honestly brought a lot of that upon myself because just from being a child,
Mm.
perfection and being
Mhm.
chosen, those are the stories that align for me.
Yeah.
So, being perfect, and then being perfect means I'll get chosen,
Yeah.
and then that just leads to, praise or whatever it might be. And
Mhm.
so, I was perfect
Yeah.
on paper,
Yep.
right? I mean, I was the room mom. I literally was room mom. I did all the parties for both of my boys. My
Mhm.
house was perfect. The kitchen was clean. I packed lunch and made breakfast for everybody every single day. Dinner was
Yep.
ready. So that's what I mean by like the perfect on paper wife. But then
Yeah.
slowly I started noticing like snapping or like, like, why aren't you
Mhm.
helping me to my husband?
Mhm.
Or, well, of course, I have to make sure that we have granola bars in the pantry. And I also have to make sure that you have clean underwear and, you know,
Right.
all of those things. So that panic attack was my first one. I
Yeah.
started practicing yoga in my early 20s.
Mhm.
And I think I started going to yoga. That
Yeah.
was my first one. Then little tiny bursts of the same thing where now I would check in. The biggest burnout was, I think, my ear. And
Yes.
it's funny because people say the story of the body whispers, it
Mhm.
talks, and then it screams.
Mhm.
I think this was my body screaming at me and saying, okay, you're not going to listen now. Are you going to listen?
Yeah.
So physically, that's what I correlate to the burnout. Um, but I think it was just, I was angry, right? Like I wasn't
Yeah.
angry, but I was frustrated, resentful. And guess what my husband said? Why didn't you just tell me? You should have just communicated. Like
Right. Yeah.
I didn't realize that this behavior or this genie was because you wanted help. Like,
Yes.
and so him saying that really allowed me to notice the burnout and to then go, huh,
Mm.
shift. Does
Yes.
that make sense?
Yes.
It helped him opening the dialogue and having the conversation. I was like, oh, you're right.
Yeah.
Perfect genie wanting to be chosen chose that, and now I needed you to tell me. I needed him
Yes.
to tell me,
To communicate.
hey,
Yeah.
do what you got to do. If you need to
Yes.
teach less, if you need to go on a trip, if you need to just do that.
Mhm.
And so I think actually it was his language that gave me permission to
Mhm.
notice it, which is weird, but it's
Yes.
honest true.
Well, and it's so common, right? That like for women, and again, I hope this isn't overgeneralizing, but for men, they
Sure.
don't really need as much of the permission as
Hmm.
women do. And I think it kind of goes back to a lot of, the human giver syndrome, and like we are responsible. So there's this maybe inherent guilt that we feel if
Hmm.
we step away and say, I can't do this right now. I need
Hmm.
more rest. I need more nature. I need to get away. And you guys will be fine if I step away.
I know. I think it's that. It's not that I needed his permission, but I needed the permission, or I needed to hear it.
Yeah.
Like, you're gonna be okay. Like
Yes.
you're gonna survive
Yes.
and you're gonna thrive. Actually, these boys in this house,
Yeah.
how much they've thrived the moment I pulled back and was like, I am done. They've thrived. They showed me
Sure.
that I was just doing way too much. I
Yeah.
was doing way too much, not allowing them to do what they needed to do. It's funny,
Sure. Kinda over
you
are
know?
you, firstborn?
I am
Or
all
okay.
this, yeah.
Oh,
Mhm,
yes. Yes, yes, yes.
mhm.
That's I mean, again, not to overgeneralize, right? But that's pretty
Sure.
standard, right? We kinda
Mhm,
see, like, assuming the responsibility, sometimes maybe being the overfunctioner at times because, "Hey, I got
mhm.
it. It's my responsibility."
Yeah.
So, I love that you moved into that space of permission for yourself, like, hearing somebody else
Mhm,
maybe echo that back to you,
mhm,
recognizing a need, and then going, "Oh, yeah, I can go and do this." Yeah.
mm. And it really I think it was my mantra for a little bit too, was like, "It's my time. This is my
Yes.
time." That doesn't mean
Yes.
that I'm not giving to you anymore, but now it just means I gave so many years without noticing, not
Yeah.
giving to myself, that now it's like the art of noticing. So another one of my favorite things, the art of
Mm.
noticing, whatever it might
Mhm.
be, but the art of noticing that I was feeling lonely, I was feeling sad, but not because
Yeah.
I didn't have people in my life, but because I wasn't really filling my own cup, you know?
Yeah.
And so travel fills my cup. I will travel by myself.
Mhm.
Sometimes I'll travel with girlfriends, I'll travel with my husband, I'll travel with my kids, my sister, but travel is one of those things for me. Movement is
Yeah.
one of those things for me that really is healing. It's been
Sure.
incredibly transformational to move my body without a watch, without, I go in the back and I don't,
Yeah.
it's not for show. It's like I'm here because I really need this for myself.
Yeah, absolutely. I wonder too if you can talk a little bit about yoga specifically, because
Hmm.
again, you started out with more of a fitness lens and then shifted over
Hmm.
into the yoga world. And you do teach a very hard, it's a very hard hit class with like weights and stuff. And we do a lot of
Hmm.
flow in there. But then here
Sure.
recently, you started just teaching like a power flow. So no weights
Hmm.
and just the asanas and the sequences, and I love that. I think we
Hmm.
need both, but what
Yeah.
have you noticed specifically with yoga, um, in relationship to burnout for you?
I started practicing yoga early in my 20s, and I had
Yeah.
a lot of wonderful teachers back home.
Mhm.
And it really was something I always honestly wanted to do, but I was afraid. I was scared. What
Yeah.
if people don't like my music? I was so afraid of what everybody was going to think.
Mm.
And then moving here, after this happened to my ear, so I've had my yoga teacher training maybe for about 5 years, my YTT.
Yeah.
Um, I was like, "No, we're doing this. I wanna do this. I'm gonna do my yoga teacher training," because everybody is going, everybody's always pushing. So I
Yeah.
love the encouragement of the slowdown.
Mhm.
So it's funny. I got my yoga certification to teach bliss, not to teach sculpt. I
How
literally
funny.
wanted to teach gentle because I already teach hit, but it just so happened that once I got certified right away, they were like, "Can you teach sculpt?" They needed a sculpt teacher. And I started in that world. And
Yeah.
I never really got the opportunity to be soft in that world.
Okay.
And then I started teaching Bliss Flows and other studios. And I'm like, this is why I got certified. And I
Yes.
just didn't do it at Ignite because I think, uh, I did it a couple times, but it just wasn't the role that I was playing. And then
Yeah.
now in the last few months, I said to Christy, I love teaching sculpts, but like I'm in my soft girl era too. Like I want everybody to slow down.
Yes.
Everyone's used to me being sure I am high energy, but I'm like more than one thing. So like
Yes.
can I be the soft genie too? Can I be like the
Oh,
gentle genie? And
yeah.
I think I just need it again. It's so funny how the burnout makes you go, just give yourself permission to be who you need to be. Like don't allow
Yeah.
anybody else to tell you that. So I did go to Ignite and I went to Kirsty and I was like, I really want to teach power. If it's not here, it's okay, but I'm going to let go of the 8:30 to create space
Yeah.
for something that's really going to bring me joy, which is the power flow. So I'm so happy. Yoga is grounding. Yoga
Yes.
is breath. Yoga is movement. Yoga
Mhm.
is releasing judgment on the mat, right? And there are
Yeah.
some days that I am on my mat and I am everywhere else but on my mat,
Yep.
right? Because I'm human. So I'm like, Jeannie, bring yourself back here, bring yourself back here, bring yourself back here. And if I don't, I wait for the next time I'm on my mat. So I just think that it's a really great representation of the outside world, which I use a
Yeah.
lot in class. I'll use a
Yes.
lot of like, you know, um, the outside world is crazy, the inside world can be chaotic, and that's okay, but just be. So I yoga for me is a really grounding thing. It's a spiritual practice. It's something that I use. I mean, I'm a yogi. I am a
Yeah.
spiritual. I
Mhm.
love, you know, my husband's like, "You're juju." I'm like, "Whatever you wanna call it." It's me.
Yes.
It's just energy, right? It's just energy.
Yeah.
And yoga for me is energy. That's literally what it is. It's light energy.
Yes. There's such a forgiveness to how you're
Mm,
describing it, you know? Like I love the idea of being in my soft girl era because I think especially
mhm.
for high achieving people like us that just are used to going and like you
Yeah.
use the phrase chosen, you know? Like
Mhm.
I think that that can kind of set us up for a trajectory of performance and the grind and everything that we see kind of in the wellness world, even in the wellness world, right? Like
Sure.
not even just fitness, but I think sometimes
Mhm.
even where it's masked as wellness, but there's a hardened like edge to it. And so by you kind of saying, yeah, you know, like some days I get on my mat and I am not present and I
No.
just have to look at that and go, well, okay, that was an hour I wasn't present. And so let it go. Next time,
Yeah.
I'm going to work on maybe being a little bit more present. Um,
Sure.
and that's lovely.
Yeah, and it's just it creates it's like there's these contractions sometimes,
Hmm.
sometimes the contractions are physical, sometimes they're just in our brains or what we're
Yeah.
experiencing in our lives. But the yoga mat really creates an expansion, honestly. Even if my brain or my thoughts are going other places, just knowing that I can breathe and just
Yeah.
in that moment, it feels really dang good. In that
Sure.
moment, it feels really, really good to just breathe, to be on my mat. There is zero
Hmm.
judgment. And that's also a thing I think in the yoga space too that you talk about, where it could get kind of harsh is let's
Yeah.
just say there's a day that we're practicing and the teacher will cue a handstand. And that day I went to the root mat and I was like, you're not going to do anything. Just show up,
Hmm.
just move how you need to move. And so for me, the yoga is also that, right? Because it's
Yes.
also, okay, the teacher cued a handstand. Well, guess what? Today, you're not doing that. And be okay with it because it's not a show. You're here for
Yeah.
yourself. And so yoga has really taught me that is to
Yeah.
be honest and be true to myself because the chosen and the perfect one might go, crap, well, everyone else is doing the handstand. So,
Hmm.
so the yoga is no, listen to where you are, be in
Yeah.
your body, be in your
Yep.
body, stay in your body. So
I
that's the beauty for
really,
me of yoga.
oh yeah, I really appreciate you saying that because I think about that a lot, you know, in
Mhm.
classes when we're showing up again for the purpose of being forgiving to oneself and trying to, you know, just be at the four corners of our mat and really just be present. And it can get really competitive, you know, where you're looking off to the left and the right and going, well, I don't know how to do that. I can't do that. I've been doing this for 10
Mhm.
years and I'm still not here.
Mhm.
And so I appreciate you saying that because again, this is all what leads to burnout, right? Is when we get into this
Yeah.
competitive mindset of like, I have to be the best at this. You don't.
No, you don't, and the funny thing as a yoga teacher is I hear a lot from students. I hear a lot
Yeah.
obviously from my students, and what number one thing when I share those things, they're like, "Oh, I'm so glad you said that." But it's again, I
Mm,
think it's permission. The same
yep.
way, I needed the permission from my husband. It's like you need the permission. You don't have to. You need to give yourself the permission, but from the teacher's point of view saying, "You have permission to not do
Yeah.
any of that." You go, "Oh, huh, imagine that." I
Yes.
don't have to do I don't have to do the things that I don't wanna do today.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah, absolutely. I don't know if you're familiar with Glennon Doyle.
Oh,
She wrote
sure.
like yes, absolutely.
Yes,
Like
I know Untamed, yeah. Mhm.
huge fan of Glennon
Yeah.
Doyle. But
Yeah.
she uses that story a lot about how she just like, you know, she was in the middle of like a really big life transition and just the world was falling apart around her. And she just goes and she just gets on her mat and she just it was a hot yoga class and she'd never been to a hot yoga class before. And so she was just like, what the hell did I just get myself into? Right. And she just
Yeah.
ends up like laying on her mat and just like, I think she probably just cried for the rest of the class, but she didn't
Yeah.
leave. And it was stay on your mat. Just stay on your mat. Like,
Mm.
don't run, just stay on your
Mhm.
mat. And how
Mhm.
there was such a bigger lesson to that. It wasn't just
Sure.
about the class. In fact, it probably had
Yeah.
nothing to do with the class and everything about
Mhm.
just the surrender. And
Mm.
so it was, that's what it made me think of. Um, yeah.
Yeah. No, I love that. And honestly, I think as far as the burnout goes, I think we're human. So
Yes.
it's really hard, to live in a world and a society and work and be and do and not experience burnout.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone's immune to it, even if you're doing the things that bring you joy. Because I can honestly say, as my second career teaching full time, I
Hmm.
still do fashion show production part time.
Yeah.
I can still bring myself to burnout,
Hmm.
loving teaching, but maybe doing too much or maybe overloading whatever it is in the outside world also. So it's just that reminder of I spend a lot of time by myself. People are
Hmm.
like, you talk all day, energy, yoga is an energy exchange. I'm like, I spend a lot of time, read a lot. I come home, I talk to my dog a lot. I
Yeah.
just like, I listen to podcasts or I just listen to
Hmm.
nothing. I go on walks. So I think for me is I will, I don't think I'll ever experience full burnout again because when I feel it coming on and I feel this
Yeah.
transition of like, huh, I feel uncomfortable or I feel anxious, I'm like, okay, I'll breathe. I'll do some sort of a breathing
Hmm.
workshop or some sort of a breath. And I'm in my body. What do you need? Okay, that's what you need. And I'll do that. And for some people, it's like, how do you have time to do that? Because I'm making the time to do that now.
Yes.
And I'm lucky that I have the time now because my babies are out of the house.
Right. You're in
I
this
have the
era.
time now to be very clear. It's also the point I am in my life right now, allows me to
Right.
do that. Allows
Sure.
me to do that.
Yeah. I mean, I guess there's also like a self compassion to that, right? Because, like, again, like, I think in our 20s, I don't really know if I could have even recognized that. If you would have told me to stop and just take a breath and ask myself what I need, I probably would have looked at you like you were crazy.
Mm.
Right. But
No.
now you have the
Yeah.
space to do that.
Sure. And honestly, and I think we didn't I don't know about you, but for myself, I
Hmm.
really did not have the time. I had 2 boys being in sports and like I said,
Right.
working and being the room mom. There was no time to go, "Hey,
Right.
what does Jeannie need?" I mean, maybe there was, but I didn't make it a point. Like, what do I need today?"
Yes.
I just didn't. And now I think age, knowledge, right? As we get older, that's the beautiful thing too. That as we
Yeah.
get older, we realize, at least again, not generalizing, but at least for myself and a lot of the women that I speak to, we go, oh my gosh, so many of those things don't even matter. The fact
Mm-mm.
that like my son had like a folded napkin and everything was like perfect, like, I mean, he might remember, but not really. You know what
Right.
I mean? Like the fact that the pillows were like super straight on the couch,
Yep.
nobody remembered that. It
No.
doesn't matter now. So now if I host a party, my house, I used to, Cindy, my house, I could not go to bed. It was 4 in the morning till my house was spick and span. Now, if
Oh,
we have a party or we have friends over, I'm like, you know what? It'll be there in the morning.
that's right.
Let's do it. Right? And
Yes.
actually, you know what else is beautiful about it? My husband, I usually will wake up and he's already done it. I didn't
Oh,
ask for the help before. I didn't
even
ask for it.
better. Even
Yeah.
better.
Yeah. It's
Yes.
amazing.
Just
Hmm.
like the stuff that happens whenever you create more space, which I guess is a great segue into my next question for you about um, burnout. Like, what is
Hmm.
one of the harder lessons that you've had to learn about yourself? Because again, as we've talked about, it wasn't just like you woke up one day and recognized it and then fixed it, right?
Sure.
Um,
Yeah. I will always go back to, I think what the hardest part, well, I'll always go back to is I really think, and I don't know if it's true. I went to many doctors, but I really think the ear thing,
yeah.
because it was a physical realization. It was the hardest thing because it's something that I had to live with, right? We don't realize when you have 2 ears or 2 eyes or whatever it is, your
Hmm.
body parts. And I do say this a lot in class. You don't realize what you have until you don't, as far as your
Yeah.
physical body, you know? But I don't know if that's why it happened. Doctors literally go, "We don't know. We don't know why
Yeah.
that happened. We can't figure it out. There's no nerve damage. There was nothing. It just happened." So, if that was the lesson,
Mhm.
I'm going to take it as that was and it's been the hardest one because I live with it now. And there are
Yes.
moments where there is a lot of noise because I have
Mhm.
tinnitus in my ear too. So it gets really loud. Um, but I think that instant brought me to 6 months of like, why me? Why me?
Mm.
Why did this have to happen to me? So there was
Yeah,
anger.
of
There was 6 months
course.
of like, this is crazy. Like I teach. I'm on headsets for fashion show production, right? So I've got
Yes.
people talking in my ears. And I think navigating that, understanding like, number one, our body's amazing. Because
Yeah.
my husband will always say, he'll be downstairs and I'm upstairs. And he's like whispering. And I'm like, I heard that. And he's like, how can you got one ear and you heard that from upstairs? And I'm like, this ear hears 150%. But I think,
Exactly.
but to answer your question fully, I think that was the moment that I really paused, in all honesty, where I really paused,
Yeah.
had my moment, 6 months or so of like, how could this be? And then it
Mhm.
was, okay, and now how can I shift this? How can I
Mhm.
shift this? So the burnout led to that moment. I think it really did. I really think it
Yeah.
was stress. It was carrying. I felt like I had everybody's stuff up here.
Yes.
And now I've just allowed to everybody to carry their own, literally each boy. Like, listen, babe, my job is to, help you be a great human in this world, but I can't live for you.
Mm-mm.
The same thing for my husband. And I think a lot of times burnout as a mom, as a wife, is we're
Mhm.
carrying everybody else's stuff along with ours. So now it's like, I always love you and I will always be here for you. But I am going to put your stuff a lot down. You guys have got this. You're 18, you're 22. My husband's a grown man. And now
Yes.
it's my turn. So honestly, I think that, so it wasn't like a specific moment, like this, like
Mhm.
you said, it was the physical losing of the hearing, the 6 months in between where it was like I could have gone and like done other things, but I
Yeah.
I I chose to shift the perspective.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
That's a beautiful lesson and a hard lesson and a real
a hard
lesson and
lesson. Hmm.
very hard. And I think about what you say in class a lot about we're so lucky we have two sides. And that just takes
Yeah.
on a whole new meaning for me now, Jeannie. Like,
And
so thank you for
y-
sharing that.
but it's so funny. It's so funny because I say that and I when I first started saying it, I never really thought about what I was actually saying.
Yeah.
But then one day my husband was in class and he's like, "Do you say that because of your ear?" I'm like, "Oh, actually, no." But
Yeah.
it really does make a lot of sense of why I would say we're so lucky we've got two sides. Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh, thanks for
huh.
noticing that, Cindy.
Oh my gosh. I always take my little genie lessons away,
Yeah.
like just
Yeah. Yeah.
it's
Yeah. I
and I
love
use
that.
it. I use it for
Yeah.
my practice as well,
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
where you're at now is that you're teaching at are you at 4 different studios right now?
Yeah. I'm at four right now. I am at four studios. Kind
Okay.
of all over.
Wow.
Yeah, teaching all different formats. But you know what? I love it.
Yeah.
And people will ask me, how do you do it? Are you burnt out? Honestly, no. I think routine at this point,
Mhm.
if I was to show up to the same place and do the same thing every day, that would burn me out. But
Yeah.
going to a new studio and teaching something different, seeing the new faces, meeting the new people, because when the reason why I call myself really is wellness fitness is
Mhm.
because it's not just about moving our bodies, right? I also like
Yeah.
to like coach, our minds. Like I'll say that a
Yes.
lot. If you're training your mind, you're training your body. We
Mhm.
learn a lot about ourselves when things get hard physically. We learn about
Yes.
a lot, so the chatter, what do we tell ourselves in class? So the wellness, the physical part, they marry each other because people show up
Mhm.
90% of the time to look a certain way. But the
Yeah.
reason they keep showing up is because they feel a certain way, and
Yes.
that's really the wellness part.
Cool.
And
Yeah.
so, yeah, I'm at all four studios: Hit Studio, Sculpt Studio, Yoga
Oh my
Studios.
goodness. So fun. No 2 days are the
Yeah,
same, I bet, for you. And so where do you see this going next? What's your kind of goal? Because you're an empty nester now, officially, right?
yeah. So actually, I'm really excited working on hosting a yoga retreat with my sister. Yeah, next in 2025. So she is an incredible breath facilitator. She does transformational breath work.
Cool.
And she has kind of embodied this amazing part of of the breath.
Uh-huh.
And while I also incorporate a lot of that in my practice and a lot of studies that I've done, but I
Mhm.
think our strengths are, I am more like the movement, and that is what I really find joy and what I think I'm really strong at. And she's really great at the breath. So together, it's just really excited about it.
Oh, so
Um,
fun. Where is it gonna be? Do you know
yeah.
yet?
So we are kind of toying. We have two different places in Costa Rica, and we're looking
Oh,
at April 2025. So it's actually in the next few weeks. We'll be rolling everything out and sharing, but
so
really
cool.
excited about the next step. That's it. That's next. That is
Yes.
next.
Oh, how
Mhm.
fun. That's such a neat
Yeah.
experience. Yeah, I'll have to definitely get some more information from you
I
about
know. I'd
that.
love for you to be
I
there.
love retreats.
Yes.
That's
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
cool. I'm so appreciative of your time today, Jeannie. I know that you don't have a lot of it, but I can't tell you how much I have gained from your class. I continue to learn from you, just both from the movement, but also just the mental headspace that you provide for people that come to your class. I always tell people, I'm like, if you, like I said, if you go in and you're having a terrible day, I promise if you take one of her classes, you will leave just with a shift. I hope you do another one of your, what is the dance? The one that you do
A
just
goddess
for
flow?
women.
The
Yes,
goddess
the
flow?
goddess flow.
Goddess
Yes,
flow.
yes.
Yes.
I hope
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
do
Yeah.
that as well
It's
because yes, I can't dance very well, but I do enjoy I do enjoy going and showing up and trying it anyway. So,
it's
yes.
yeah.
Oh, so
That's kinda what
fun.
it started. That's how it
Yes.
started. So, yeah,
So
the
fun.
retreat thing. Yeah.
Can you tell our listeners where they might be able to find you on Instagram, like if they want to know more about you and
Yeah.
your practice?
Sure. So I am on Instagram. My Instagram handle is coach underscore
Okay.
JEANNY, Jeannie G.
Okay.
I'm sure you probably post it right somewhere. You'll have it
Yes,
somewhere.
I will
But
definitely include it
it's
in the details.
okay. So you can find me on there. Honestly, you can find me in DFW. I'm kind of all over. I post my
Okay.
schedule often. And then as far as my retreat, would love for everybody to just check it out and see if it's
Yes.
something that feels good for you.
Absolutely. I will share that retreat stuff on my Instagram as well whenever we get that
Thank you.
information. You would
Thank
I
you.
know our listeners would just benefit so much from it. So thank you again, Jeannie, for being on here.
Oh,
It was so fun and I just appreciate you so much. Appreciate your time.
thank you so much. Likewise. And I miss your
Yes.
bathroom chats.
I
We
know.
used to have those
We have to
bathroom
have more.
chats.
Yes. Yes. We need to have more
Yeah.
bathroom chats.
Thank you. And I appreciate
Thank
you so much. So much love,
Oh,
Cindy.
this is
So much love.
such a fun combo. Thanks,
Yeah,
Jeannie.
you're awesome.
All
Bye.
right. Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Bye.